So at the start of this passage, John chapter 9, this whole episode, which is, as said, like a living parable, as Jesus is going along, they see a man who is blind from birth. And his disciples are asking him particularly about his blindness. He was blind from birth, and the perceived wisdom was that any suffering, including blindness, was a direct result of sin. If he was born blind, there was a reason for it. But whose sin is this punishment for? Is it for his? Well, he was only a baby, so how does that work? Was it his parents' sin? And they've got to process that if that's the case. And this was a belief that was widely held, and surprisingly is still widely held, and perhaps in a way that we're unaware of. We often carry that belief too. Phrases like, he didn't deserve what happened to him, or why does it that these bad things are happening to good people and yet the nasty people get away with stuff? Or even in a more positive way, I'm glad it all worked out for her, she deserves it. I've even seen in some charismatic fellowships the belief that if a healing doesn't happen, or if prayer doesn't work for an individual, the obvious conclusion is that there's hidden sin in their life, or even in the depths of their family. And it's a shock perhaps to think that we can fall into this sense of almost pseudo-karma, as opposed to what is in the gospel, which is grace in a fallen world. Tom Wright says we need to stop thinking of the world like some kind of moral slot machine where a good act put into the machine releases a good outcome for us, and vice versa. It all portrays something deep within us, which is a deep sense of correct justice. And justice is absolutely at the heart of God, but it is not a factual description of how our fallen world works so often. And here Jesus is dismissing such a simplistic and often incorrect way of viewing how the world is ordered. What he's suggesting is that it's stranger, it's darker, and it's more damaged than maybe at first we realise. But in response to this, the Lord's work is more powerful and shines more brightly because of it. The man is blind as a result of the general fallenness of the world, not a specific individual sin, but he is also going to be the place where God's recreation meets the world's brokenness head on, where the light of God's glory in Jesus will be seen shining bright in a place of darkness. And hence Jesus is saying here, I am the light of the world. It's an important place for him to say it. And this is another one of the I am sayings, and it's within the sixth sign within John's Gospel. So Jesus heals this man with spit and mud. I have no idea why Jesus uses spit and mud and puts it in the man's eyes. But the command for him to go and wash does have echoes of the Elisha and Naaman episode, where Naaman goes and washes in the River Jordan. And so there's an act of obedience and response and faith that is required and is demonstrated. And the man does this. He obeys and his sight is restored. And here, I think, is where some of the farce comes into it. People who are around, who maybe know him, have known him for a while, they've got really mixed responses. Is it him? Looks like him. Can't be him. Really? With the man insisting, yeah, I'm still me, it's me. And this is what's happened to me. But people are so confused by what's happened. There's such dramatic change in this guy's life. So in this state of unknowingness, they take him to the Pharisees to get to the bottom of it. And in the light of this awesome, breathtaking miracle, which should be a demonstration of the power and love and restorative power of God, as seen as a fulfillment of Old Testament prophecies of the coming of God's kingdom in Isaiah 29 and Isaiah 35, that the blind would see. With this amazing event, these religious leaders focus on the timetable. It can't be godly, this miraculous healing, because this person, Jesus, did it on the Sabbath. So he must be a sinner. So how does that work? A man is healed But was he really healed? We need to get to the bottom of this. Talk about blindness. The evidence is right in front of them, and yet they refuse to see it. They cannot see it. And not believing the man and his testimony, they go, well, let's dismiss him. Let's get his parents in. Getting a man's parents in and asking them, tell us what's happening here. And they go, don't ask us, knowing that they might get kicked out of the synagogue for anything positive about Jesus. Don't ask us. Ask him himself. He's old enough. And so they foist it back onto their son. Go on. Tell the truth. What really happened? And the man says, I've told you the truth. What is it? Do you want to follow him too? And I wonder if the man was winding them up. And this does not go down well with them. And then the formerly blind man tells the religious experts of the day the simple truth that he is standing there as proof that God exists, that God restores, and he has done it through this man, Jesus. And as a result, he's thrown out of the synagogue. There's quite a bit that's farcical, ridiculous, and comedic about this chapter and the way people respond to the move of God. But at the heart, as with all episodes with Jesus, there is a deep, deep truth. And verse 25 captures something of it. Whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. Those words that have become a powerful description of salvation, seen in the songs of Newton. I was blind, but now I see. In other words, I don't understand, but this is my experience. And we've seen that so often, so many people's experience today, experiencing an encounter with Jesus and having their lives turned around, being restored, but not fully understanding who he is. Whereas there are many who think they know the facts about Jesus but have little or no experience of Jesus alive in their lives, active today. The comedy of this is the man starts off blind physically and spiritually. He encounters Jesus and his sight is restored, first physically and then spiritually as he confesses Jesus as the Son of Man. And the Pharisees, the pure religious ones, considered the man a filthy sinner because of his blindness without realizing that they were the truly blind ones. The ones stumbling in the dark, refusing to follow the light, even when it was blazing in front of them. Instead, they wanted to close their eyes and stumble in the dark. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. He is the one who brings light to the darkness, sight to the blind, brings a new creation to the damaged order of things, is the perfect example of grace in a fallen world.